Hi, this is Elizabeth Cressida. I'm presenting my major project number 2 presentation of my inquiry. My inquiry was presented as a key question to my students. What happens when 7th grade students complete multiple readings of a complex text with guided support? This was done at Howard Pfeiffer Middle School with 6 7th grade students in a predetermined range of 600 to 800 lexile. This was determined through our SRI testing that we did earlier this year. And it's in my 7th grade inclusion language arts class. We did it at the small table, at a kidney table for a small group. And the purpose was to observe the effects of multiple readings on students' individual comprehension gains as a result of repeated reading, but using the guided support. The goal was to support students in achieving independence in reading complex text through modeling reading strategies using think alouds and repeated reading. Our objectives were to just read closely to see what the text says explicitly, make logical inferences, sometimes this is a challenge, and also to cite text evidence as we either write or have discussions. Then they are going to analyze characters, events, and ideas as they developed over the text. And they were to interpret words and phrases that are used in the text just for initial comprehension, noting figurative language and connotative meanings, and maybe the word choice, the tone and mood of the story. So to begin with, we're doing what's called, or what I like to call, a first draft read. This is when the teacher reads straight through the entire story. We picked The Open Window. It is a short story by Sakai. That is his pseudonym, Monroe's pseudonym. And the complexity of this text, the lexile is over 1,000. And the students have not been introduced to this before. However, we do have some things that we do prior to reading. The first thing is we discussed tracking our reading, following along, and also following the gist, general idea of what it says in the text. This is one of our mini anchor charts around the room. And the other thing was to be aware of big ideas. We call it the big idea map, big issues in life. All the students have mini anchor charts that they have made and used for their notes. And then what we did was we went ahead and read, and they followed along. We had a discussion, and we have some parameters for having discussion in class, just to keep us on track and to respect each other. And then we did short reactions to the text in our reader's reaction notebook. And that was our first reading. The first reading only took 1 day, or 1 class period. We have 84-minute classes. So the second reading was also teacher-led. However, before we read, the students were paying attention to their fix-up strategies. These are similar to what Tovani goes through. There's a whole list of them. Earlier in the year, students learn about the fix-up strategies when they get stuck, okay, on one worksheet, and then they have a bookmark that they use as they read other texts throughout the year. This time we read focusing on big ideas and just understanding the characters. They also imitated my annotations as I close read, and then gradually I released responsibility to them. We did have to pull back a few times because they were in disagreement when they worked with the students at the table as I was observing them. They just could not come to a decision, which is one of the reflection points that one of the students had made that it was difficult because they didn't come to an agreement, but it was easy because she felt like she was problem solving and they were talking to each other. So that was nice to see that they kind of recognized they were stuck and it was hard, but they kind of persevered through that. And that actually took several days. The chunking really slowed us down. The story is several pages long. The third day they were asked to dig deeper, and we talked about specifically about big ideas around a character. And I had them select one of the two main characters. One was Vera, one was Mr. Nuttall. And I again read to them, only this time when they went through their text, we highlighted in different colors depending on which character they noticed information about, whether it was Vera or whether it was Mr. Nuttall. And then what they did was they charted the evidence that they found. So we focused more on getting kind of fine-tuning and focusing in on a character's development. And they had to find their evidence and tell me the lines, and then what did it tell them about the character. In the end, they really struggled sometimes with that deeper thinking. I think because there was still some comprehension, confusion with comprehension. They didn't understand the sarcasm that was used in the story. A lot of aha moments where they were like, oh, that's what that meant. And really great discussions. What I noticed, I guess, as a result was that they are really motivated to do this again, this activity. Other students in the classroom that kind of saw this small group going on, they really want to participate in it, and loved talking about what they understood and really kind of working out, and realizing that everybody else has all those questions about the text as well. So as a result of creating the plan and conducting the mini inquiry, it really validated a lot of what Miller talked about in her book, which is interesting because it's elementary level strategies and teaching techniques, but it really applies to the middle school. That when students self-reflect, track, and share their learning, long-term retention and motivation increases. Thinking through the text together help them become more aware of what's going on in their heads. And the one thing that I saw an improvement on, just kind of as proof of understanding, was that they were able to really start to think for themselves and have nice discussions and good questioning. A lot of good questions and kind of wondering what those deeper thinking strategies might be and how do they get there. Through discussion and through annotating. So that was really interesting. Students who didn't recognize things through the first read or even the second read had a much better understanding of what the story was actually about by the end of the third read. And it was interesting. I only wanted to do 3 readings because the research article that I had used said that after the third reading, students really didn't learn anything more or couldn't get anything more out of the text. And I will have to say that I agree, because I think 3 times with the same story within a week, possibly 2 weeks if you kind of really stretched it out and really got into it, would probably cause the students to maybe start to lose interest in doing anything else with the story.